properly voted upon. So if I could just go back to Clause 3 once again and say, is the amendment carried? No. I'm sorry. Is the clause carried? Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now we're at the amendment for Clause 8, and I would like to ask the House if the clause as amended is carried. Okay, not carried. Thank you very much. And can we proceed? Shall the clause carry? Carried. Thank you. Okay. We're very close to the moment of interruption, so I think if somebody would like to adjourn, or I'll just... All right, very good. We've reached the moment of interruption, and we will continue on with the late debate. Thank you very much. I leave this chair.
I'm going to get suggestions from all kinds of people.
Yes, I need it.
As soon as you finish the amendment on a clause,
I'll have to say the subject of late debate. Where is it? Is it here? Where is the subject?
just recognize that.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize the honourable member for East Hants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker. Well, I'm glad for an opportunity to speak this evening, and certainly just to shed some light on the plight of some of my constituents, and certainly some constituents or the member for Cole Harbour or for Colchester Musquodoboit Valley, and actually. I know in the Burnside facility there are probably members for the Dartmouth area or Halifax that have constituents who are also involved in this strike. I want to say at the outset, Madam Speaker, that in the 21st century we kind of would think that the issue of labor relations would have taken us farther than we've gotten to this point with this strike, and actually in other strikes in this province and in this country. I mean, I think by and large, quite often there are people who will attack unions, and if unionized workers have to go on strike, they just would always put all the blame on the workers. And this archaic mentality that doesn't really believe that workers in this day and age should have some decent rights when it comes to their contribution to the welfare of a company, that have their efforts have allowed a company to make large profits, and even though there may be no profit-sharing mechanism within that company for the employees, then we definitely believe that at least through a collective bargaining process, that the company would see to it that their time with the company and actually their time after the company, in other words, when they retire, that they would be treated fairly and be able to live out their years with some measure of security, at least as much as can be determined through settlements on pensions and wages. And it seems blatantly unfair that actually, from the information that the union has provided here, that it looks like this company actually bargained not in good faith, that they planned for a strike, they hired replacement workers ahead of the strike vote, or ahead of the strike anyway, and it's when the company is sitting at the table one day, but at the same time knowing full well that they're not going to give, and they're hiring replacement workers, with the notion in mind that they're going to force the union into a strike, then you can only assume that they're, number one, not bargaining in faith and in good faith, and that they have a plan to break the union. And it's in the 21st century, you would think that we've come somewhat farther than that. And I know for the members that I've talked to, to my knowledge, this is the first time that the workers at this company have ever gone on strike. And I think that when they get pushed to a point of actually laying on the line, their assets, their income, their plans for the immediate future, not to mention just the long term, but you remove a paycheck from somebody, I live in a pretty fragile house of cards, I think, too. I think that I wouldn't want my paycheck removed for too long before, things would start to collapse. And, so when you do that in August, with the notion that December is only a few short months away, Christmas is a few short months away, and you have obligations that we all have, with bills, but that an issue or issues are so important that you're willing to stand up and fight for what you believe in, because to this point nobody else has done that. That for year after year after year, for contract negotiation after contract negotiation, that these workers actually could not get what was rightfully theirs, that they would have some security in knowing that if they stayed with this company, worked hard for this company, that they would be remunerated in a appropriate way by the company. And last year, that they had a 25% increase in output, that these workers did, and who benefited from that? Well, you might say, they may have benefited because they got overtime. Well, I'm not sure that if anybody remembers our debate in this House on labor standards and trying to get appropriate overtime for workers, what an uphill battle that was. But for these workers, it doesn't look as though they have any right to even refuse. If they're wore out and get called back, that they're going to be disciplined if they don't go. So, here are people who really don't seem to have a right to refuse, have shown, actually this is the type of thing that you would think would demoralize your workforce. If you're called upon, to work if you thought you had worked enough, but yet they didn't have any lack of production. Actually, they increased production up to 25%. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot without increasing the workforce by 25%. So I think that the company would be well advised to take a look at its workforce and be thankful that it has a workforce that actually gives its all for that company. Now, somebody will say, well, they get their paycheck, that's all anybody deserves. Well, no. We stopped having children die in chimneys, years and years ago. The way that, and in this world, there are jurisdictions where there's child labor and no labor laws and that protect workers. And in this country, it's been a hard-fought battle by labor to get some security for workers in this country, and they've made great gains, but still, there's a long way to go. And although if we believe in the collective bargaining process, then we believe that whatever agreement you get, then you live by it. Well, they've lived by it, but they haven't gotten any particularly great agreements. And I won't read from this, but there's an interesting chapter in this book called Workers and the State in the 20th Century in Nova Scotia, and it's the Windsor Gypsum Strike. And I want to say that anybody who gets a chance to read this, would get some notion of the approach by companies to their workers, actually not just to their workers, but to the communities of those workers. And this is the same notion that companies from away, and in this case from the United States, in both cases from the United States, but that they seem to have felt no responsibility beyond paycheck to workers, no significant responsibility to the community. And I just want to, one of the major issues here is pensions. And pension plan, a member with over 30 years service now has a pension entitlement of approximately $6,600 per year, or $550 per month. This person must work until age 65 or suffer a penalty of 6% per year for each year they would retire prior to 65. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call on the honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, listening to the previous member speak, I'm kind of at an awe to wonder, is this 2005 or is it 1905? Because it appears that this was a predetermined strike orchestrated by the company when their decisions were already made before anybody got to the bargaining table. Madam Speaker, this is an issue of importance to the industry and to Nova Scotians. Primary industries have always been the backbone of the economy of Nova Scotia. We're getting into the technical world and things like that. But fishing, farming, mining, the lumber industry, they've always been there. And they are an important cog in the wheel of the whole engine economy of Nova Scotia. And collective bargaining is a process which must be respected. It's a little late in history to turn a blind eye to this. And we respect the employees and support them in this process. My own personal feeling is any one of those workers up there in the gallery, given different circumstances, they could be down here and I could be up there. With my take on life, or my philosophy on life, the person who sweeps the floor is just as important as the person who sits at the oak desk in the corner office as the top dog of the company. We all, as the fellow says, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. And to me, the caste system went out 1,000 years ago. I hear the 25% increase in production, and I wonder, it takes me back to my sister-in-law, Evelyn Sampson, who cautioned me one time, because I do get caught up sometimes and go far and beyond the call of duty and work excessive hours and things like that. And she reminded me that a lot of times the reward for the winning horse is more work. And it's odd to think that the harder you try to please somebody, the more you don't seem to be respected. You've heard me in this House, Madam Speaker, ask the Department of Transportation to do early tenders for job satisfaction for families. This strike, as well as other strikes that I'll refer to, affects not only the workers, but their families. I wonder if Dad's going to get the strike settled before Christmas. I wonder if we're going to be able to buy certain things. Kids are going to school apprehensive because they know there's upset at home. I've said to my family for years, I was in the sales business, I said, I can't fight with customers on the road and fight with my family at home. Home has to be satisfying and a comfort place for me to come. but you couldn't battle customers on the road and battle at home also. And a strike, that's what it's causing, and that's what it causes, Madam Speaker. I was involved with the Sea and Marine strike a while back there when I was an auxiliary police officer. And that strike, I'd like to know what it cost. RCMP were involved, the police from North Sydney were involved, all the auxiliary constables were involved, but the biggest upset of all were families who were trying to get on those ferries to go to Newfoundland and were sitting around in their vehicles in a parking lot trying to feed babies, trying to look after their families, and having to walk long distances across parking lots to use washroom facilities. Nobody wins. I had a family member who worked at the local hospital involved in a strike for 6 weeks. This time of the year, cold, wet, damp weather, and it was mostly women standing out there on those picket lines. And when the contract was settled, they went back for less than what they had anticipated. And it just takes such a terrific long time to gain what you've lost that nobody wins. The large company probably can use the so-called losses that they'll incur in production as an income tax deduction against loss. And the money that they save, I'm sure, will probably go to Christmas bonuses for the management that are left there. Madam Chair, you've heard me talk about the four-letter word fair. It's gone from the English language. If you think or talk fairness, then I guess you're not a good business person. You're a successful business person if you tighten the screws on the people that make the profit for you, keep them downtrodden, and not respect them. But, Madam Speaker, I know from experience, when I'm happy on the job, I'm 1,000% productive. When I'm unhappy, I can be the worst cuss to deal with, and I ain't doing nothing for anyone, simply because you're just turned off and the fur is up on your back and you just become very obstinate. Madam Speaker, I'd like to tell these gentlemen and the lady up there in the gallery and to you that wounds heal, but scars remain forever. These people have families, they have children. Way down the road somewhere when their kids are in college, they'll say, "What's your name?" "Oh yeah, you worked for my dad, or my father was your boss, or my uncle remembers the strike when such and such." And that division, that'll surface in years to come through your children. You hear that Cape Breton song, "We Rise Again." Well, and we rise again through our children. Well, these scars will rise again because it'll never be the same, because you've got guys and gals that have been giving good service, and all of a sudden they're out in the cold. What do we do wrong? How are you going to? How do you resolve that when you go back to work? So, Madam Speaker, I don't know. As I said, I know that businesses don't operate without clean washrooms, without swept floors, without our waste paper baskets being cleaned out, without our desks being looked after. How could we function if we didn't have that? So how important is that compared to us here in a suit and a shirt and tie and speaking for these people, given a different set of circumstances, as I said at the beginning? I could be up there, they could be down here. I could be the person that comes into my office every night and cleans out the waste paper basket and tidies things up. It's just, but the bottom line is we're all human beings and we're all supposed to be neighbors and we're all Nova Scotians. And Madam Speaker, I would like to see the Honourable Minister do his utmost in his capacity to resolve this problem. He probably doesn't have the authority to interfere with the company or whatnot, but I'm sure a letter or a call from him asking the company to bargain in good faith, to come back to the table and make a decent offer and end this strike. Nobody wants to be out on strike. As I said, nobody wins. The problem that seems to exist And with no intent mentioned, I suppose other companies can go on strike, but I must mention that down in my riding, Little Narrows Gypsum has been there for a long, long time. They do excellent production, and they have an excellent corporate citizen name in the community. And I was a councillor for 12 years in Victoria County and warden for 3, and I have only heard praise and respect for that company. And I know these big ships sail up past my house now, since they've dredged the entrance to the Great Bedore. The larger ships can come in. They go up one day, and I'm sure these things must be 15 and 20,000 ton or more. I know the Alga port is 670 feet long. It'll travel up past my door in the morning at high tide, and it's coming down the very next day completely loaded. So somebody is doing good work like these people were doing, and there's good production, and the business goes on. So that's what I would like to see the minister do, is use these people and do his best to settle the strike, Madam Speaker. And with that, I'll take my seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize the Honourable Minister for Environment and Labour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to stand this evening. I think it's worth mentioning that I certainly appreciate the comments from the members opposite, and it is certainly a very serious issue that we are discussing this evening. And I would like to make sure that the members are aware that I asked our conciliator to bring the parties back to the bargaining table, and hopefully that will occur as soon as is possible and is practical, and that we may be able to facilitate in getting the parties back to the table to negotiate a contract, which is certainly what everybody is intending for them to do. I met with the people who were up in the gallery today. John Peterson was there along with the rest of the individuals, and I mentioned to them that my comments may not take 10 minutes. I did have a good discussion with them. I believe I better understand what their concerns and their issues are, and I hope that they appreciate that I know a bit about where they're coming from and some of the hardships certainly that they're going through while they're on strike at this very difficult time for them. We've tried to address, I guess, the issue to get people back to the table. That's what we're aiming for, and what I'm optimistic that will take place. I guess at this point in time I would like to just mention a few things with regards to the bargaining process and the Trade Union Act. Certainly something that's there that we live by and live with. The fundamental premise, is that in bargaining is that the parties have the right to develop their own settlement, and I think anybody who's been involved with or on the outside of negotiations of any kind appreciates that that's usually not an easy process. I guess you might even liken it a bit to making rules, regulations, or laws in this place. The results aren't too bad, but the process you go through to get there is not really something that you particularly want to watch or be part of. So our goal is that they will be able to come up with a contract that's doable and usable and fair to the parties that are involved. Each party has the duty to make every reasonable effort to achieve a collective agreement, and we certainly seem to be at an impasse now. We want to encourage both parties to get back to the table and roll up their sleeves and close the doors behind them. And I think, as was mentioned to me earlier, maybe even knock a few heads together and get this thing ironed out. Any strike that goes on has gone on too long, certainly from the people that are involved, and we would like to ensure that this gets settled in a speedy fashion and as quickly as possible. If the parties can't reach an agreement, there are some limited options that are open to me as the minister and to the department. One is to appoint a mediator. That is an option. If the mediation fails, the only other option, which has been mentioned here, is an industrial inquiry commission, and that certainly is another option. Those are options that we will look at and review within the department But at this time, we are moving forward with the conciliator in hopes that that will be the right mechanism at this point in time to get everyone together. Options such as mediation or industrial inquiry commissions shouldn't displace the parties' duty or responsibility to work towards a settlement. And I certainly know in talking with the individuals that are here today that they're willing to work and to work hard to develop and ensure that they have a collective agreement. It's best certainly when parties can negotiate, and I guess if a conciliator assists with that, and we can achieve a collective agreement, that really is the goal that we have. The collective bargaining process anticipates the escalation of pressures upon the parties. Any negotiator or any seasoned negotiator will tell you that, as I mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as easy negotiations, none that I've ever heard of or been involved with in my lifetime. We want to make sure that parties reconsider their positions and rather than face any prolonged labor dispute. I think it's fair to say that in this type of situation, there are no winners at the current time. The winners are only recognized when everybody is back to work and things are back to normal. Right now, we have companies that certainly are feeling the hardship, and we certainly have employees that are feeling the hardship. And that's not something that I certainly want to see take place any longer than it absolutely has to. We have a pretty good track record in Nova Scotia, something that I guess I'm quite proud of within the department. We've helped parties achieve collective agreements in 93% of the cases, and it sounds, and I don't mean it to sound cold and callous that I put a number on the success, but I believe it is important when you're looking at measuring the caliber of the people that we engage and get involved in this to know that we do have a good success rate, which means we have the experience and we have the personalities that can work in these very difficult situations. I can't really even imagine what a conciliator does on a regular basis, but they certainly would be challenged with regards to dealing with both parties and working both sides towards the middle or some sort of ground in the middle that would facilitate them signing an agreement. So our average is pretty high with regards to Canada. That gives me some hope and I guess some light on the horizon that we'll be able to work with the parties, get them together, and get a desired result. What we've done is try to get people back together. Both sides are entrenched at this point in time. I think that's the word typically used. I think we need to get the parties back together. We need to give them the dignity of the collective bargaining process, and that's something that is missing right now with the circumstances that we're in. And I will sit down in just a few seconds and certainly share my time with anybody on the other side who would like to make comment. I do appreciate the comments that were made here this evening. Certainly have been listening to those. Staff in the department have been monitoring the discussions here this evening. We will look at the options that are available, but at this point in time, I'm optimistic that a conciliator can get the parties back together and we can come up with a result, a signed collective agreement, which is what everybody certainly in this House and certainly those in the gallery are looking forward to. So, Madam Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Yes, I'd like to recognize the honourable member for Halifax Fairview.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's only a minute and a half left, and I did want to say this. There are few things that are harder on the communities that we represent than when people decide to make that most difficult decision they can make, which is to withdraw their labor. And this strike is, when I think about strikes, I don't think about sort of competing economic forces. I think about families. I think about these people whose families, whose neighbors, whose friends, our communities also go on strike when they do. This is a particularly difficult strike to deal with because it involves our natural resources, a natural resource which for decades has been shipped out of Nova Scotia, not being processed here. And it is particularly hard to take for those people who are on strike when they see replacement workers crossing the picket line, taking their jobs while they are fighting for decent working conditions and a fair wage. It is high time that this government came to grips with the fact that the worst part of our labor relations regime is the lack of any means of dealing with replacement workers. This government can do more than simply refer to its legal powers to appoint mediators. We do have some highly skilled mediators in the Department of Labor. This government needs to use its moral suasion, its power to say to National Gypsum, this strike is no longer acceptable and it must stop now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The time allotted for late debate has expired, and I thank all the honourable members for their participation. I'd like to recognize the Honourable Government House Leader. No?
Yes, Madam Chair. Would you please reopen your committee? Thank you.
Thank you.
The Government House Leader? At that time, moved to 13. Okay, to clarify matters, my understanding is when the committee is dealing with a bill, it is deemed to be the bill as reported by law amendments, with any amendment made by the Law Amendments Committee. And so is it agreed that the bill before us, up until including Clause 12, is as recommended by the Law Amendments Committee? Agreed. Agreed. And so for the remainder of the consideration of Bill 203, by this committee, all members should remember that we are dealing with the bill, including the Law Amendments Committee amendments. Okay. So are we agreed that everything up into, including Clause 12, is carried? Okay, carried. We're ready then for Clause 13, and I'll recognize the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, the amendment to Clause 13 and the amendment to Clause 14 are identical. So we could move both of these at this. One at a time. No, one at a time. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so.
Keep going.
Mr. Chair, what I'd like to move that we amend Clause 13, Section 4, subsection 3, or C3, sorry, by striking or serious mental impairment or both. I so move.
The amendment is moved. Questions called. Will the amendment carry? The amendment is not carried. Shall the clause carry? Carry. It's carried. Clause 14, I recognize a member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, 14D, I would move that we strike or serious mental deterioration or both.
There's an amendment to Clause 14D II. Shall the amendment carry? No. The amendment does not carry. Shall the clause carry? Carry. The clause is carried. Clause 15 and 16? Carry. Clause 17, shall it carry? Or no, the member for Halifax Needham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that we amend Section 17.1 by inserting where a psychiatrist, strike has, and insert and a physician have conducted an involuntary psychiatric assessment and are of the opinion that the person has a mental disorder, etc., that C, Section 2, be amended to strike or serious mental deterioration or both. So I move those, and subsection 2, that we add, for greater certainty, neither the psychiatrist nor the physician referred to in subsection 1 shall be the physician referred to in section 8.
The Minister of Health, okay. The member from Halifax Needham?
We're not sure how you're voting on this?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's the point.
So for clarity, Mr. Chair, for the honourable member, the underlined section in the copy of the bill you have in front of you are the amendments we're proposing. Okay.
Okay, thank you, member. The amendment is on clause 17.1 and 2 as outlined. Ready for the question? Shall the amendment carry? Oh, I'm sorry. No. Okay, the member still wants to speak. Halifax Needham.
The reason for this amendment is that it's very important that we have an additional balance or check in terms of involuntarily admitting somebody into a facility, a psychiatric facility. And I think even more important, it's that the person who, the physicians who sign the initial certificate, medical certificate referred to in Section 8, not be the same person then who is reviewing the decision or making the decision about an involuntary admission. And if the members would go back and look at Section 8, Section 8 provides for 2 medical certificates for a person to be detained for an assessment. And there is, in fact, a provision in Section 8 that allows for one physician, one medical certificate, where a second physician is not available. And there's nothing to prohibit then the same person, once again being the person making the involuntary admission order. And we think this really lacks the balance, the checks and balances that are required, and in fact are provided for under the current Hospitals Act. And that's the basis for adding in an additional physician. It gives the opportunity for a more balanced, a second opinion in this process.
Ready for the question? Will the amendment carry? It's carried. Will the, excuse me, can I hear that again? Will the amendment carry? The amendment's not carried. Will the shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Indeed. Okay. Clause 18. The member from Halifax Needham.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move that we add in Section 18.1 on the second line and physician as underlined in your copy, so that in determining a patient's capacity to make a treatment decision pursuant to Clause 17(1)(e), the psychiatrist and physician shall consider whether the patient fully appreciates and understands. And that additionally in subsection 2, we also do the same thing. We add in a second opinion.
Thank you, member. The amendment is in clause 18(1) and 2. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Yes. Clause 19.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move that we amend Section 19A, subsection I, by again adding in that the psychiatrist, and add in the words "and physician," and that we do the same thing in Section 2 and in Section 3. In Section B, I so move.
Questions called on the amendment on Section 19A, 1, 2, and 3, and Section B. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. Okay, the amendment does not carry. Does the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clause 20? It's not carried. Or it is carried, I'm sorry. Clause 21, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And in this section, in Section 21(1), again, adding in the word "and a physician," and adding a new clause, subsection 5, that would say the following: the patient rights advocate, or the patient substitute decision maker may request that the decision referred to in subsection 1 be made by a psychiatrist other than the one who has signed the order for involuntary treatment. So I so move.
Okay, the amendment is moved. Clause 21, section 1 and 5. Shall the amendment carry? No. Clause 22. Oh, shall the clause carry? Carried. 22 through clause 24. Those clauses are shall the clause carry? Yeah, carried. Clause 25. The member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. To add into subsection 1 "and a physician," and to add a new clause, section 2, the patient's rights advocate, or the patient's substitute decision maker may request that the decision be referred to in subsection 1 be made by a psychiatrist other than the attending psychiatrist.
The amendments in clause 25, 1 and 2, shall the amendments carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Yes. Clause is carried. Clause 26. The member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would move that we add section D that reads that the patient has the right to speak with the patient rights advocate in a timely manner. I so move.
Amendment moved on clause 26D. Shall the amendment carry? I hear no. Shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. The clauses 27 through 34. Shall the clause carry? Clause are carried. Clause 35. The member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would move that we strike in clause 35(1) transfers and replace "make a decision to transfer," and additionally add in "and rights advocate." I so move.
Moved on the amendment on clause 35.1. Shall the amendment carry? Noes have it. Shall the clause carry? It's carried. Clause 36 through 46. Shall the clauses carry? The clauses are carried. Clause 47. Recognize the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I would move that we amend Section 47, subsection 3, A, by adding in the words "and a physician." We do that in 3 places in this section. That additionally, in Section 2B, we strike "or serious mental deterioration or both," and that we add Section 6, "no community order will be issued to a person who cannot access an assertive community treatment team in the person's community." And in Section 8, H. Pardon me? 6 is an add-in, yes. It's in addition to that. And that we amend H by adding in "and the physician." Subsection 6 be a new clause that reads, "The patient, the patient's rights advocate, or the patient's substitute decision maker may request that the decision to issue a community treatment order pursuant to this section be made by a psychiatrist other than the attending psychiatrist."
Thank you, member. It's been moved that clause 47, sections 3A, 2B, 6, and H, as well as adding section 6. Shall the amendments carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clauses 48 through 51. Shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. Clause 52, the member from Halifax Needham.
Mr. Speaker, I would move an amendment to Section 52.1 by adding in the words "by a psychiatrist and a physician." Additionally, adding in a new section 3, the patient rights advocate, or the patient substitute decision maker may request that the decision to renew a community treatment order is made by a psychiatrist other than the psychiatrist who issued the original order. And Mr. Chair, I move.
Been moved that clause 52 be amendment with section 1 and adding section 3. Shall the amendment carry? Shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clause 53. Shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. Clause 54. The member from Halifax Needham.
Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to this clause briefly. We don't have an amendment to this clause, but this clause should concern us all, I think. For people who are concerned about accountability in our healthcare system, I want to draw the attention to members of the House to what this particular clause does. This clause says, "Where the physician who issues or renews a community treatment order or a psychiatrist appointed under the previous section believes on reasonable grounds and in good faith that the persons who are responsible for providing treatment or care and supervision under a community treatment order or community treatment plan are doing so in accordance with the plan, the psychiatrist is not liable for any default or neglect by those persons in providing the treatment or cure or supervision. And the next section essentially says that the person who is providing the treatment or care or supervision is not liable either. Now, the question is, so who is liable? If we have people in our community on community treatment orders and the services aren't there, and we heard at the Law Amendments Committee from presenters, people who work inside the mental health system, who tell us that the resources aren't there and the services aren't there. But we also heard from people who work in the mental health system in this area, for example, who were unable, who've worked for many, many years in the mental health system in this area, who were unable to say what exists in the community. Treating psychiatrists, people who were involved in developing this legislation, who made reference to the services that were out there to support CTOs, and when asked to give some specific details of what were out there, were unable to say this. Now, I have a real concern about this, and I know that the reality of people's lives in terms of how they work inside the mental health system is they often don't know. They often do not know. They rely on maybe social work to arrange those community services and resources. And social work may say to the psychiatrist, there's really nothing available for this person. And psychiatry may say, we need that bed. This person is ready to go. And the fact that, the arrangements haven't been made is not really something I can consider it now, because I have a very sick person who needs this bed. I'm very concerned that this legislation removes the accountability and the liability, both for the treating psychiatrists in cases where community treatment is ordered, and as well for the people who are there to provide the treatment, the care, the supervision. I think this is really something that should never occur in our legislation. I think it's very important for people who are working in our services to always have in the back of their minds that not only do they have a professional and an ethical responsibility based on their codes of ethics from their various professional bodies, but they also need to understand that in our system, people will be held accountable. And to remove the accountability for not only the treating psychiatrist, but also the community services, the care, the treatment, the supervision that's supposed to be there, I think is a very, very bad precedent, Mr. Chair. And this entire section, frankly, causes me some serious concern. So I wanted to make those points.
Good point.
And I think the government members need to be aware that this could create some significant problems down the road.
Thank you, member. Are you ready for the question? Shall clause 54, shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. Clause 55 through 59. Shall the clauses carry? Clauses are carried. Clause 60. The member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I move that we amend this section replacing patient advisor service to rights advocate and patient's rights. That section 61 read 60 sub 1, that the governor and council, that we strike may and replace it with shall, that the governor and council shall make regulations designating an organization as a rights advocate, replace patient advisor service with rights advocate, and the qualifications of a strike patient's advisor and replace with rights advocate. That in subsection 2, we strike a patient advisor service or a patient advisor, and we replace that with rights advocate. That we add an additional subsection 3, which would read, a rights advocate designated pursuant to this section shall be at arm's length and has the same powers and duties as the Ombudsman under the Ombudsman's Act. I so move.
The amendment is for Clause 60, Sections 1, 2, and adding 3 and renumbering 4. Shall the amendments carry? The amendments are not carried. Shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clause 61, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move that in Section 61, subsection 1, we strike the words patient advisor service and replace with rights advocate. We strike may and replace with shall. In subsection 2, we strike patient advisor service and replace with rights advocate. I so move.
The amendment is moved on Clause 61, 1 and 2. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Carried. Clause 62, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that in Section 62 we strike patient advisor service and replace with rights advocate, that we add an additional wording that says in writing and in a timely manner, that we add in Section F, and we add in a Section G that says the decision to move a patient to another facility. I so move.
The amendment is in Clause 62 and Sections F and G. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clause 63, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I move that we strike in 63 subsection 1 the words patient advisor and we replace with rights advocate. That in section 2 we do the same thing. We strike patient advocate and replace with rights advocate.
Thank you, member. The amendment is for Clause 63, Sections 1 and 2. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. Clause 64, 65, 66, and 67. Shall the clauses carry? Carried. Clause 68, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we amend 68 subsection 4I with, we add the patient's rights advocate. I so move.
The amendment is to, on Clause 68, 4I. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Yes. Clause 69, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we amend Section 69, subsection 3, by adding in, after substitute decision maker, the words the patient's rights advocate. I so move.
The motion is to amend Clause 69.3. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Clause is carried. Clause 70, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move that we amend Section 70, subsection 2C, by adding in the words the rights advocate and strike patient advisor if no one has been authorized to act on behalf of the involuntary patient. I so move.
The motion is to amend Clause 72, Section C. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Yes. No. Clause is carried. Clause 71, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again would move that we strike in Clause 71(1) the words patient advisor and replace it with rights advocate. I so move.
The motion is to amend Clause 71(1). Shall the amendment carry? No. No. Shall the clause carry? No. Yes. Clause 72 through 75. Shall the clauses carry? No. Clauses are carried. Clause 76, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we amend Section 76, subsection 1B, by adding the additional words "or rights advisor." I so move.
The amendment is to for Clause 76, 1B. Shall the amendment carry? No. Yes. Carried. No. Shall the clause carry? No. The clause is carried. Clause 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82. Shall the clauses carry? It's carried. Clause 83, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move that we amend Section 83(1)B by striking patients advisor services and replacing it with the words rights advocates. I so move.
The motion is to amend Clause 83(1)B. Shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? The clause is carried. Clauses 84 through 90. Shall the clauses carry? No. Clauses are carried. Clause number 91. Oh, the member from Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move an amendment to the Act inserting subsection 91(1), which reads, "This Act has effect for 6 years from the date of the coming into force of this Act." Mr. Speaker, I would like to, or Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to that for a moment.
Clause 91(1).
Yes, I so move.
Okay, it's the amendment on Clause 91(1), the member for Halifax Needham.
Mr. Chair, this is this particular amendment is a sunset amendment. It is one of the recommendations that we had at the Law Amendments Committee came from Dr. Stephen Kisley. Dr. Kisley is a psychiatrist here in the Capital District Health Authority. As I said earlier, he's the only psychiatrist who appeared in front of the Standing Committee on Law Amendments who has had direct and personal experience, professional experience, working with community treatment orders. He has done extensive research on community treatment orders. He actually would be very interested in, if this bill passes, in over the next few years, assessing the impact of community treatment orders. Dr. Kisley comes from the school of thought that community treatment orders, in fact, have not been demonstrated to do what it is that is often said that they will do, prevent people from being criminalized in the criminal justice system, prevent people with mental health disorders from being homeless, prevent reoccurring readmissions into hospital. He comes from a school of opinion, expert opinion in the psychiatric field that believes in services and assertive community treatment. He also presented to us that we should consider a sunset clause for this, this particular piece of legislation that would give a limited amount of time for this bill to actually be in effect and to have an opportunity to develop the kinds of services and resources that would really make a difference for people with mental health disorders, people he treats every day. So we thought in the NDP caucus this was a very sensible idea. It's not an idea that's unknown in the legislative field. And so I'm pleased to bring forward this amendment. Thank you.
To clarify with the House, and we are on clause 91, I believe. Okay, and the member from Halifax Needham has made an amendment to clause 91. So shall the amendment carry? No. Shall the clause carry? Yes. Clause is carried. Clause 92. Shall the clause carry? Okay. That's all the clauses in Bill 203. Shall all the clauses carry? Carried. Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. I recognize the Government House member, House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, would you please call Bill number 232, the Optometry Act?
Bill 232, the Optometry Act. I recognize the Minister of Education. No, sorry. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Would you please call Bill 235, the Dispensing Opticians Act?
Bill 235, the Dispensing Opticians Act. The question's been called. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Would you please call Bill number 243, the Emergency Measures Act?
Bill 243, the Emergency Measures Act. The question's been called. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Just one moment. Mr. Chairman, would you please call Bill number 251, the Public Service Act?
Bill 251, the Public Service Act. Question's been called. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. The Government House Leader.
Would you please call Bill number 256, the Municipal Government Act?
Bill 256, the Municipal Government Act. Question's been called. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. The Government House Leader.
Would you please call Bill number 258, the Building Code Act?
Bill 258, the Building Code Act. Are you ready for the question? Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. The Government House Leader.
Mr. Chairman, would you please call Bill number 260, the Interpretation Act?
Bill 260, the Interpretation Act. Shall the clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? The bill is carried. The Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move now that your House do rise and report these bills.
Is it agreed?
Agreed.
The House shall now rise.
Tough one there for a while. The whole House bills.
Reports. The committee has met and considered the following bills: 203, 232, 235, 243, 251, 256, 258, and 260. The chairman's been instructed to recommend these bills for favorable consideration of the House without amendment, each without amendment.
Okay. Recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now rise to meet again on the morrow at the hour of 9 a.m. The House will sit from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. and that the order of 12 p.m. and that the order I did that once before. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, the order of business will be public bills for third reading, public bills for second reading, committee of the whole House on bills, and I think if we have any private and local bills, we'll be doing those as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The motion is to adjourn till 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Is it agreed? House is adjourned.